you can do it in a new file. I'm just going to make up a new file to start it up anyway. So I'll just give everybody a minute to start Revit up.
Is it a project or
Oh, it's definitely a project. Yeah, it's definitely a project. So I'm going to start a new Revit project. So I'm going to use the architectural template, but of course you can use your house if you've got it going. Architectural template. And I'm just going to go into level 1, delete this, and just going to quickly set up a house. So I'm going to put in some walls, rectangle. I'm only repeating stuff we've done before, so I'm going to do this a little bit quickly. And let's put in a floor. So again, I'm going to pick the lines. I want to be here, 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 here. And let's put it on the screen at the same time. So in order to get whatever drawings you have open, you can put them on the screen by pressing WT. So WT is the shortcut for doing that. So if you had 6 drawings open, they would arrange themselves on the screen, so you can see all of them if you press WT. Window tile, it stands for. Okay, so let's just switch on the shading here so we can see what's happening. And I'm just going to now let's copy the floor up just to repeat some of the stuff we've done before. So I'm going to select the floor. I'm going to use the copy to clipboard, and then I'm going to paste it, align to selected levels. I'm going to put it on level 2. Okay. And now I'm going to just put a roof on, just so we have a house. So this is just repeating some of the stuff we've already done. So I'm just going to pick the edges that I want. So now I've just made a house. That's just repeating stuff we've already done. You don't have to do that. You can use your own house and so on. But now I'm going to just draw some internal walls in. Wall. Let's draw a generic 150. And let's just move it like this. And do another one from over here like that. So we've got the beginnings of where we think maybe a kitchen could go in here. On the 3D view as well, I'm going to turn on the section box so we can see what's happening in 3 dimensions as we get in there, like that. Okay, usually when you're designing something in Revit, it makes sense to sketch it first in 2 dimensions, because you can get very confused in 3 dimensions straight away. So the way to sketch things is to use the annotate tab up here, and you need to select the right plan first of all. Annotate tab and use a detail line. The shortcut for this, if you want to start using the keyboard shortcuts, which speeds up your life, is just to type DL. So usually it'll show you what the shortcut is at the top. If you just let the cursor lie on top of the icon, it'll say the name of the command, and it'll show you the shortcut on the keyboard as well, DL. But if I press detail line, we can just start to draw lines. And these lines don't exist in 3D space. They only exist in the specific drawing that we're working on. So we can use them just to set things up. So if I draw a line like this, I can then select the line afterwards and give it a specific dimension as to where I want it to be. So detail line, like that. If I select it afterwards, I can see that it's placed at 902.1 millimeters from the wall here. I can just select this dimension and change it. I want it to be 600. So it moves at 600. And this one again, I can change it and move it to 600. So 600 is like a standard dimension for a kitchen counter, which gives you enough space to put all the elements within the counter there. So we're really just drawing the shape of the counter that we want here. We can then use we can either use the modify tab, or we can press T, or let's just use the button so you can see it, to trim the edges together. So trim this to this. So we've got kind of the basis of what we want for a kitchen in here. I'm just going to keep it as a very simple kitchen for this purpose. You can see it doesn't turn up in the 3D view what I'm doing here, because it really is just annotation. So it's sketchy lines in a only in the specific view that we're working on. So now I want to make that into a kitchen counter. So under the architecture tab, we have one button called component, and this is where you develop all the elements like furniture, or I don't know, tables, or anything that's outside the standard building elements. This is where you can actually model them. There's two things you can do. You can either use the arrow down here to place a component. If I select this, for example, we get what we have up here is already loaded into the project as components. You can see we have some cabinets in here. We've got a countertop with a sink, a desk, and various bits and pieces that are already set in here. We've got a lot of trees actually as well. So there are actual cabinets already set up in this project. So we can just select one of these. Let's say we want to use this sink here. I can just select it and bring it into the project like this, and just place it. And you can see this does appear in 3D, because we're not dealing with an annotation object. We're dealing with an actual element. So it starts to pop up in the 3D view. We have some options with it. We can flip it based on where we want it to be. But these flip tools are based on whoever made the family, and I'll get into family making in second semester. But the idea is that you can basically go out and find any type of element you want. So the first port of call whenever you insert a component is what's already loaded into the project, which will turn up in the properties dialog on the right here. If what you want isn't in the project already, we can go back in and go to the insert tab. And if I press insert, we have an option here to load a family. So this is loading from a file that's outside the project. So load family. And then out here we get other stuff. So this is from the Dan.edu. So there's a few things in here we can use. There's some urinals, some toilets, and bits and pieces in here. There's not that much stuff. There's the sink. It's already there. So that's the first port of call. The next thing we can do is we can use this little search bar here. If we can't find it in the families that we have on the computer, we could type in sink in the search bar, and this will go to the internet and open up a web page, Autodesk web page, and it'll give us various options as to the sinks that are existing in Autodesk web page, which we can then download and insert into our project. So let's just go through that. If, for example, we wanted to use this sink here, we can just click on the family. RFA stands for Revit family. We can choose the type we want. The latest version we can see was made in Revit 2011, so let's choose that version. And once we've selected, we press download, and it just pops up over here in our downloads. Once it comes down, we can open it up, and it upgrades it to the new version of Revit, and it opens it up in the family. So there it is there. So there's the sink we've just downloaded. We can modify it here if we want, but we usually don't have to. So once we have it in here, we just press load into project, and there it is, popped up in the project. So now we have this very detailed sink we can use instead of the other one. Is everybody with me there? Will I do that again? In the video here. So WT, we can shut down the family now. We've put it in there. WT again. I'm going to delete the previous sink. And before I do anything else, I'm going to put a kitchen counter in here. So it's the same tool again. You go to architecture, component, But instead of place a component, I'm going to model it in place, because you never get a kitchen counter that's the same in every house. So model in place, and it's asking us what category do we want to put it in. So I'm going to put it in casework. That's fine, because it's just part of the cabinets. Press OK. I'm going to call it kitchen counter. And now we get these modeling tools up here, and these are just 3D modeling tools. The first one is something called extrusion, and if you leave the cursor on top of it, it shows you exactly what it does. Basically, if you draw the shape of the object you want to make in 3D, and then you just press a button and it extrudes it up, so it gives it a three-dimensional form. So we're going to do that first of all, extrusion, and I'm going to just use the pick line tool, pick lines, and I'm going to say I want it to be here, 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 and here. So we've picked all the major dimensions. Now we just have to trim it so it makes one complete loop. So I'm going to use the trim button. Trim. I'm going to trim this one to this one, then this one to this one, this one to this one, and this one to this one. So we should have a complete loop without any lines that overshoot the other lines. So that gives us the shape of the kitchen counter that we want. Before we accept that, over here we have the constraints of the extrusion. So we can decide where we want it to start and where we want it to end. So let's say we want it to start at 850 mils, and we can make it end at 900 mils. So that makes a 50 millimeter kitchen counter. And we can also give it a material. So let's come down here to material and press this little button here. Opens up the material dialog. So I'm just going to type in tiles, and let's see what we have. So down here we have blah 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 blah. Well, that's not that interesting. Let's say ceramics. That's not that interesting either. Let's say mosaic. Okay, so let's put this mosaic pattern in. So it actually does have like a mosaic tile pattern in there. I'm going to apply that. Press OK. So now when I accept it, we get a kitchen counter, and if we turn on the realistic view, does it display the? Yeah, it does. So it displays the actual tile that we've set it up for in there. So you can change the material to whatever you want. You can always come back and modify it over here if you select and come over to the properties dialog. Okay. But you can see that the counter that we've designed is actually it's actually going through the middle of this sink here, which isn't going to help us. So we can just come back in, select it again, edit the extrusion, and I'm just going to cut a hole out by picking the edges of the sink here, and then just making sure the edges are trimmed together. It's always very important that you trim the edges together, because otherwise it won't make a closed loop and it won't work. So if I accept that, you can see in 3D here, it's cut out the sink. I don't know why it's this weird material, but we'll work that out later. Is everybody with me? Sleepy. So then we can finish the model. So we have the basis for the kitchen now set up. We've got the kitchen counter, and we have the sink. But let's say we want the kitchen. We don't want it to end in a flat edge like that. Let's say we want it to curve the edge. We can control what the edge of the counter looks like. So if I go back in and say architecture, component, model in place, it's going to start the same thing again, casework, and this time I'm going to call it counter edge. This time, instead of using an extrusion, I'm going to use something called a sweep. And a sweep is, if we let it load there, you define the line, you define the profile, and then you just let it follow the profile, if you know what I mean. So you basically just draw the shape you want, and then you define the line you want it to run along. So I'm going to make a sweep. We have two options here then. We have sketch path or pick path. We've already drawn the shape of it, so we can say pick path. So I'm going to select this one and this one. So that's where we want to put it. Accept that. And now we can edit the profile. If I press edit profile, you see we get these, you can't really see it there. I'm going to turn it to hidden line again. You can see we get these crosshairs where we can draw the profile that we want. So it's usually a good idea to go into side view in order to draw these things. Probably the other side actually. Where am I? I'm getting lost. Out of view. There we go. Okay. And we can always turn on wireframe view so we can see a little bit better as to what's going on in there. And now I'm just going to draw a curve between the top of the profile, the bottom of the profile, and let's do it like that. And then we just draw a line. The reason these lines are displaying so thickly is because we have the drawing set at 1 to 100. But you could come in here and change the drawing scale to, let's say, 1 to 10 while we're doing it so we can see it. Or you can come up and switch the line thickness off, just like that, so then you can see it in complete clarity. So what we've done, we've just drawn this shape for a profile to run along the edge of the kitchen counter. If I accept that then, and accept it again, finish the model, I can go back into the corner view and you can see, if I switch the shaded on again, that we've got this kind of curved edge. We've put a curved edge on the side of the counter there. And let's turn on the realistic view. So you could change that to whatever material you want, but you can also just change it to the same material as the counter itself. So you can always go back into edit in place, select the model that we've made, and change the material over here to the same one. Mosaic gray. Okay. Finish model. And you can see it wraps the material around the edge like that. So that's just basic understanding of what you can do with those type of modeling tools. So we could continue with these with the kitchen by inserting some of the cabinets. So let's do that again. So go to architecture, and I think we're going to let's just WT this so we can see everything on the screen again. So I'm going to go to architecture, component, place a component, and over here I think we've got some kitchen cabinets already set up. So we've got some base cabinets. Let's choose these 600s. So we can just put them in, as many as we want. And you can be very careful about this, or usually you place them and then you modify them as you go along. So we got some base cabinets in there. We also have place a component. We also have some upper level cabinets I think already set up, so let's put in some of those. If we want to. So these are the first example you see of families that are designed to be face based. So if I try and place these upper level cabinets anywhere in the middle of the floor here, this little circle with the line through it is telling us that that's not possible because they're face-based elements. So we actually need to go and select a face or an edge of a wall in order to be able to place them in the drawing like this. And of course, once you place them, you can play around with aligning them afterwards, moving them, and getting them completely correct. But again, the thing about this is, as you put them in, they're not only populating the 3D view, but they're also populating the schedule. So it's telling us exactly how many cabinets we have in the house, so we can make a very quick calculation of how much that's going to cost, and so on. Okay. Any questions about that so far? Yeah.
So which manufacturers is the cabinet from?
The cabinets that are just in Revit right now have no manufacturer. They're just like an idea of a cabinet.
Okay.
But if you wanted to, you could go in and find one from a real manufacturer and put that in. Yeah. Or you could select, and then because you've already placed them, you can come up here and change it to the new type you've inserted into the project, and it'll just put it in there. But often you don't choose a manufacturer at all for a kitchen. It's usually the client that does that afterwards. And it's not in the at least in the first design. So let's align that in there like that. Okay, so that's fairly simple, isn't it? Let's just have a look at BIM object, because what I've done here is I've installed a BIM object app into Revit, which you can do by using the Exchange apps up here. And if I go into browse here, let's just see what they have in terms of chairs. What have they got on the front page here? Anything we can use? Let's just type chair. And let's say we want to use this kitchen chair here. We should be able, it's got three softwares you can use: ArchiCAD, AutoCAD, or Revit. So we want the Revit version. And it just pops it into the object for us there. So the BIM object add-in to Revit is actually quite useful, because you can get real designed chairs from real manufacturers and just populate your model with them. And they come in, if I select it here, they should come in, if I go to edit type, with all the information regarding the material, the URL where you find it in terms of its product number and so on, and yeah, all that stuff that you need to actually order it. Okay, now, is there anything else I want to talk about there? Component, model in place. Okay, I think that's enough for the moment. Let's just leave it at that there for a while.